Everyone, hello. I'm not sure if this one's working, but anyhow, let me talk loud. Good morning, good morning. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the last day of the conference. I hope you had a lot of fun, seriously, a lot of fun yesterday with the discussions, because I mean, that's what we are hoping, that we want to get all your input, but we also really hope that this is an enjoyable conference, so people are happy to join the network for our next discussions and conferences. So thanks a lot so far for all your input. Let me just hand over to Anna right away, just to give you a little bit of a recap of the session in the afternoon. And then we also will have a recap of the whole conference before we all part. But let me hand over to Anna, and then we can go into the last part of the day or of the conference, which is kind of really thinking through, you know, how the network really should look like, and, you know, what can we learn from other networks. So yes, Anna, over to you on the recaps.
Thank you, Monica. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to go for a very quick recap of what we talked about yesterday afternoon. I wanted to say thanks to all of you for your energy, for continuing kind of like through the different sessions, and also to the facilitators for collecting all your inputs. This is a very, very, very small summary of what we talked about. And first I wanted to convey what we were discussing and identifying as the challenges in order to food system science to become useful for different types of stakeholders. And there were many discussions around the actors and what we need to do around thinking about how we engage with actors, but also the recognitions of the differences in terms of motivations, of participations, of resistance of some actors, and how we engage with them through that difference. Also understanding the role of different actors and who convenes, the importance of legitimacy, how we include alternative voices and thinking about power here, the difficulties to adopt systems thinking of many of these actors as well, and move beyond what is my own experience, where I'm coming from, and being actually aware of where I'm coming from. And in this sense, the capacity of stakeholders to care for others and others' needs and understand others' perspectives. And this is also linked to the idea that we're doing a lot of short-term things and how there's many limitations around that, and importance of building trust among different stakeholders means that we need to plan for long-term. So we also collectively identify different challenges related to framework and methods. And one of the key things that was coming out was about how we capture these relationships and the conflicts that sometimes happen between different actors and views and interests, the importance of having frameworks that are actually responsive and dynamic, that are able to incorporate this idea that we're working on the actual moment, but we're looking towards the future and how we adapt to that, the lack of a historical perspective in some of our analysis, and how we incorporate that, also thinking about cases of success, but also evidence that we have already there, and how we incorporate that from different geographies. A lot of conversations were about the methods that we need, and the methods that we need for specific things. A lot of talk about trade-offs, identifying specific aspects such as indicators, the importance of impact assessment, and also how to incorporate participatory knowledge. And a last kind of like element was, well, if we want food system science to be supportive of food system transformation, it has to be really linked to real life problems and how we are translating this science to actually application. And this requires time, resources, and funding. So I'm going to move quickly from these challenges that we identified to some of the recommendations when we think about the network, when we think about working together, that are also classified in different clusters. And I think it's important to say that there were elements that there were more consensus around, but there were also like different types of ideas. And I think this is something that we need to be working through, see what are the aspects that we are more or less have agreement on, but also what are the elements that we need to have more discussion about. There's more contention. So in terms of the structure, ensure long-term activity, the importance of flat hierarchies with inclusive grammar of food systems and food systems transformation, and also language, develop models of collaboration with actors that are not part of the network, establish these procedures to manage conflicts of interest. There was a lot of talk about ethics. Who do we engage with and how do we engage? How are we transparent? Including attention to epistemic injustices, thinking about types of knowledge and how they relate to each other, and how we give hierarchies to these knowledges as well if we do so, and ensure this transparency in terms of processes, in terms of who is a member, how do we do things to avoid agenda capture. There's a lot of discussion about actors, and this is just a list of some of the actors that were mentioning the different groups, but of course we could identify others in more detail, including maybe scientists as well. But one of the things that I think is important to highlight is that there were also, for example, calls to think about actors outside of the food system and think about experimentation and different categories of actors such as gatekeepers or boundary spanners. And finally, in terms of recommendations more related to framing or types of activities of the network, there were different groups were highlighting this idea of like needing to have a clear vision, where are we going, but recognizing diversity of pathways towards that vision, this higher purpose, and actually reinforcing this idea that the network exists to enable food systems transformation. Of course, we need to define what is food system science to create a network of food system science, but there was some discussion of whether it's a discipline on the making. Do we need an association? Do we need a journal? What type of devices could be useful to bring people together? As well as the importance of acknowledging that there's a political nature to our relationships, and we have to acknowledge that that is going to play off in terms of the actions, the decisions, how they are made, who do we work with, how do we do things. And some also proposals in terms of like doing a specific activities like experimentation, trying out the network in practice, like how will we go out doing that in a specific cases, creating pilots, co-create activities, and also showcasing interventions. So this is just like a very brief summary of all the amazing work that was done yesterday, and that I hope it helps us so to carry it into this session where we're going to be talking more about the network as well. But remind us sure that we will go into the detail of your work as well and capture that in the next steps of FoSSNet. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. Any specific additions or clarifying questions for Anna at this point? Otherwise, again, Chris?
Yeah, if you can go back to the previous slide, I think it might be semantics, but the point on the conflict of interest and the epistemology on inequity are two different things. The point that was made in the group by I don't know where she is now, on the conflict of interest is about the legitimacy of the network. There have been recently some very painful stories about issues of conflict of interest in the food science. And I think for the network to be taken seriously, you have to prove that you have a very clear procedure on the conflict of interest. This is different from the inequity, which is more of an agenda research. So those are two different points. To be
okay.
I think that's really important.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
There's a reputation of risk of not having a clear policy on conflict.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, okay, agreed. So we'll just add that to the slides and for our summary as well. And we have our note takers here for the plenary session who will take note of that. Yeah, here and here, and then I think we're gonna move on, Martin.
Can I just make a comment on setting up a new association, a new journal, these kind of things? My personal view, don't go there. There are way too many associations and journals in the world already. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of predatory journals in the world. And I just, there are really good journals out there that you can use, like Nature Food, for example. That is essentially a food system science journal now. That is what it's become. And I just don't see the need for it.
Yeah.
You can save yourself a lot of trouble actually by not doing really focusing on the core mission.
Right. I think that now, Rasmus, I think that's what you're going to say is the question of open access. Nature Food to publish something as a couple of £1,000, right? To just, or even more, right? So that was the point, at least in our discussions that came up. Do we need an open access one that sort of helps on these things? But again, I think we should not go into the details now. There will definitely be much more discussion and input of all of you on that. But definitely point taken, Alex, and then I think we're going to.
Yeah, this is quickly on the point of making this relevant to decision makers or change makers, actors. And there was mentioned a bit translation, but it's really important to understand that translation is not sufficient if what you've worked on is relevant to this problem.
Yeah.
So it really has to start earlier, and you have to think seriously about
the engagement and co-creation part. Yeah, exactly.
Knowledge exchange.
Yeah, exactly. I think that would also came out in at least the discussions in our group, so that it's a much larger process. And I think everybody's aware of the different ways of, particularly, you know, Anna and her group, on the different ways of engagement from the very, very start. So I think, yeah, that's definitely something that I think we need to highlight in the group. Erasmus, that was the point about the open journal, right? Okay, I think we should move on to the next session, so the last session of the overall conference, and let me hand over to Martin to introduce that again and get us started, and more discussions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you, Anna, and good morning, everybody. I am Martin van Kamp. I'm the Director of Education for EIT Food. So I want to start this session by saying, with a disclaimer, I am not a food system scientist, but as Rosina was pointing out yesterday, I look like a man who might have opinions.
What's that mean?
Exactly. So today is actually changing a bit of sort of focus on what we're doing. So over the last 1.5 days, the discussions have been really rich, really kind of, there's been a lot of work on the scientific element of what is the basis, what purpose do we have? And as Anna was saying, kind of yesterday, really the inputs of how do we, sort of what does it mean to actually do this work? Today, we're going to shift quite a bit of focus on this, because we need to start thinking about how are we going to actually make this work. So rather than continuing the conversation, the very rich and very sort of amazing discussion around what food system science might be, might not be, how we go about this, this is more about how are we going to make the network work. And so that's got a couple of different elements to it. It's not just about us working in this room. It's about all the stakeholders that we identified. How are we going to bring them in? What are the ways of doing this? But also, and this is, I think, when Tom and I were talking about it this morning, we need to start a conversation about what is the legacy of FoSSNet, which is 3 years from now. It's a bit early to start thinking about this in kind of where do we want to head with the kind of, and what's the post-project legacy of this. We have to start working on that now, because if we wait until year 3.5 to start thinking about it, then we're way too late. And so today is really about how do we strategize, how do we do this in a measured manner, in a way that we can actually build up. And so for today, then the program is we'll have, like the last couple of sessions, we'll have 2 major contributions there of key thinkers that can actually help set this up and can help guide us through. And then we are going to have a workshop to actually figure out and get all of your input to do that. Now, asking or looking for a friend, did you already have coffee today?
I did.
Oh, you did. Oh, that's nice. Otherwise, the coffee break is at 11, but at least then you're already just making sure our friends are happy and caffeinated throughout the day. And breakfast. And was it as okay? Fine. Thank you. Then, so I would like to welcome George Beers to come and give us the first input into this. George is from Wageningen University and Research in the Transition Risk and Innovation Governance group. And looking very briefly at George's expertise and background, what I thought was really interesting is that it is not just agri-food that is coming in. There's actually, if you look at the expertise, sorry, George, I looked on the website and kind of what is listed, expertise in computers and internet, management science, management information systems, agribusiness, informatics, organization, agro-industrial change, information management, and business administration. And so that's, I think, a really rich basis to start thinking about how do we actually expand, where are the extensions beyond the food system science in itself, in other spheres of academia and other ways of engaging with particular kind of stakeholders. So on that note, with the introduction, George, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Martin, for this nice introduction. Great to be here. Great to be here and to have the opportunity to share some experiences. It will be a more, let's say, personal note on how I operated for the last, let's say, decade on the issue on how to develop, to manage communities, networks. Let's see. Now we have to shift slides, I think. Yeah, this is one. Maybe good to start with going back to the early 1980s. It was my first job, and it was my first job at the research station for floriculture in Aalsmeer. So this was research on how to produce roses, carnations, and all those nice things. It was the most magnificent workplace I ever had. The special thing about that research station, it was in a building where we also had extension service. We also had education. There was an agricultural school in the same building. There were people from the ministry located there, and researchers, very practical researchers, but also more, let's say, academic researchers. And last but not least, there were also facilities to have demonstration of new varieties or new technology, all in the same building. So this was a very nice model, which learned me how research can bring the results of the research straight to the, let's say, the customers, to the people that can do something with it, and to have the extension workers to bring it to the farmers, because and also a very special characteristic, the research station was for 50% owned by the farmers. So they had their meeting places there, and so there was always farmers, students, everything was walking around there. What I learned is that it is very important that the research results are, let's say, given to somebody else to do something with it. That's what. Then in the late 1990s, I changed jobs and did some other things, and then I ended up in a co-innovation program for value chain development in agri-food. And that's where I had some experience on how to connect research with private sector companies. Really had to be companies. Companies had to bring in private sector money, and the government money was brought in via research. So in that period, let's say I learned how to work and how to understand the needs and the wishes of the companies. And at that time, within our, let's say, bargaining and research community, I was quite a big shot because I knew how to approach companies, which was a very special characteristics in these days. Later on, and now I go back to, let's say, 15 years ago, for the last 15 years of my career, I noticed that this was just a small step in bringing networks on research and innovation. It's not only research, but a lot of things happen after research to make it work in practice. And I learned that for the last 15 years in the Horizon projects that I was running, that I was managing. And they were all in digital innovation in the agri-food. So with precision farming was a hot topic. And nowadays we are working with AI and stuff like that. Blockchain, all those kinds of things were crossing my desk. I worked there as a coordinator, so not very deeply interested in the details, but managing that the researchers and all the people that were connected to it could work. And in this series of innovation actions, so this is innovation actions is specific type of project where you're not supposed to do very academic work, so to say. But you have to bring the academic work to the, let's say, the private sector. Yeah. So that's my experiences. So that is not really in the food science, but I'm coming from the digital arena. And these projects were managed from, let's say, the commission perspective by DG Connect, which is the let's say the IT department in Brussels. And that's quite a different flavor from RTD and Agri, so to say. The paradigm in innovation actions for DG Connect is it's very simple, George. You only have 3 objectives. It's impact, impact, and impact. So that's let's say that's where I'm starting from. That's the scope of my presentation. Let's first do some, let's say, principle that later I understood that these are underlying my behavior, so to say. The first one is that I think it's clear that we are not talking about simple innovation. We talk about complex innovation here. We talk about transitions. We talk about sustainability. We talk about resilience. The more complex innovations where more than one partner are involved. In the digital arena, we are now working on data spaces where we are inviting all actors to put data in a place where a lot of different users can make use of it and benefit from it, with all kinds of, let's say, tricky issues involved in there. So that's so we call it the twilight zone. I think you call it a transition, or so it's more the complex innovation. That if you are working in horizon projects, you are confronted with the TRLs. For me, it's not the TRLs per se, but it's making you aware that there are different stages in research and innovation. So TRL 1 to 4 is research, and then you see 5, 6, 7. There are different stages in that. So when you have a nice prototype developed, it needs to be validated. It needs to be tested, not only in a lab, but also in some operational environment, as they call it. You need to deal with sustaining it. You can call it business modeling, all those kinds of things. Your market research, etc. A lot of topics, let's say, especially in TRL 6 and 7, are related to standardization. So it has to fit into an operational scheme of the companies that you are working with. So this is something that it's important that if you have a nice, let's say, research result, a nice prototype, there are some activities that need to be done later on, and it's the value chain of innovation, as I call it. And be aware that the value chain of innovation is as strong as its weakest link. So don't forget one of these stages, is my message. Just a small sidestep in this thinking of the stages. You have to be aware that there is a valley of death. There is a stage. There are stages where research is dominant, and these are normally publicly funded. But then you need to make a shift to the, let's say, to the economy of the society. It's more broad than only private sector. So there is a stage where the scientists say, okay, my publications are done. I'm going to the next topic. Yeah. And there is in that stage, the sector says, well, too much risk. We don't know if it will work. So a lot of hesitation there. And that means that there's a complicated area. And I have to admit that was for the last 15 years my working field. So how to get through this valley of death? And one of the things that I strongly believe in is that you have to build a network that connects the different stages and the different, let's say, the scientists and the economy. So that's when you look at these stages, you can see that there are quite some different activities in the later stages. Now you talk about legislation demonstration. Researchers that demonstrate new applications is tricky. It's better to do it via a professional demonstrator, I would say. You talk about business modeling, so how to sustain, how the costs and benefits and the risk, how are they shared and connected. Training, the skills, of course, is also a difficult issue. If you have new technology, new inside people have to have to be able to work with it. And training and education is not only university level, it's also the vocational and everything between. So that's something that, food safety is not done in the boardroom. It's on the slaughtering lines. Yeah, so be aware of that. And of course, and a very crucial activity is the funding. It sounds, let's say, it sounds quite trivial, but it turns out in this valley of death and how to facilitate, especially SMEs, how to facilitate them to bring their product to the market. A lot of, let's say, effort needs to be done in the funding. I think EIT knows everything about that. Having different activities, you can do it, of course. University has some people that walk around and can do some demonstration, but it's, like I said, it's better to do it with professionals. That means that you also need to think about, let's say, engaging the people who can do those things, and that's where bring them together in what we call an innovation ecosystem. And here you see the different types of organizations that are, let's say, relevant in an innovation ecosystem. Different activities require different organizations, and they have to be brought together. And if you like it or not, but you see strong networks, not strong ecosystems, when there is, let's say, a sort of orchestrator. And what I see in Europe, we build a lot of those innovation ecosystems. For instance, corporations are quite active in that as orchestrator. Yeah, so that's and just for making it complete, there is a line, let's say, sort of official overview of the type of services that are relevant for research and innovation. These are this is used at least in the digital arena, but there's no digital magic in it. It can be applied to everything. So this is more sort of standard. It is technical support, it's ecosystem development, and it's business development. These are the things that are needed for making innovations work. So that's, let's say, some background ideas. Now I go to the tips and tricks, the practical examples. Let me start with building networks is not done in flash. As you can see here, not even in 3 years. We started already in 2011, and I don't know about you, but for building networks, you need resources. And we very pragmatically used the projects, the resources that are in the projects for building the network. And we did it quite strategic from the Wageningen, let's say, team, the orchestrating team. So we had a series of projects. In the first couple of projects were rather technical. Then in the iOS 2020, we have to really make the step to business. So that's where, let's say, more social sciences came in, market experts, but also philosophers. So for ethical issues came in the projects. And Smart Agri Hubs is the project where we really had, that was the objective of the project, to build a network of innovation ecosystem. It stops at 2022, but after that, a couple of other projects are still on the road. Data for Food is one of the projects that is quite close to this community, but we also have For Growth in 2024 started. So that's so it's building quite strategically on such a network where you bring together more and more people, and it goes step by step. So use projects, and if you design a project, if you are in the position to design a project, have in mind that you are using this project also for building a network. So select your partners. You know, in our community, we have partners who are open innovation, and you have partners who are, let's say, this is our secret. So be quite selective in that. And also the design of the project can help how to do that. I will give some examples of this design. The first, in the projects we did in this list of projects, we didn't have a work package. No, work package is a function in the project. I think you are familiar with that. So we didn't have a work package on communication, because communication is just sending. And so we called, basically it's the same activities, but we called it ecosystem development, which gives direction to your communication. Yeah, that's quite important. And I also, and that's my advice to everybody, if you do it with professionals, because I learned, I think I'm quite, well, let's say, experienced enough to think about communication, how to connect people. But really, if you have a bureau that understands the sector, and there are, let's say, bureaus that's communication bureaus basically that are, let's say, embedded in the sector. They know the drills, they know the, let's say, the culture, etc. So I worked with professional bureaus in this context to make this work. And one of the major things that you are doing is to organize physical events. Of course, we have a lot of teams. That's obvious, but it's very important if you want to connect. You have to connect people, and people have to know each other. Have to have face-to-face interaction. Maybe drink a beer or a coffee, just to make the connection between the people. 2 minutes.
3 maybe. 4.
Okay, I will speed up.
Okay.
Don't think if you have a website and a newsletter that you are there. We noticed that social media is quite effective in building communities that people can find each other. Also in the projects that with working with professional bureau, the work package on ecosystem development was always at least 10%. So for the projects I did, it was more than millions. And be inclusive. Be inclusive. So if people come to you and say, hey, can I join your workshop? Don't say, well, I will discuss it with my colleagues. Say, of course, you're most welcome. And what do you want to do? What can you contribute? And the trick of the trade is that your whole team is having this, let's say, inclusive attitude. I think that's quite important. Then in the project design, we also have a work package which is dedicated on spotting and exploring other projects that are working on similar topics and bring them together. And you understand if all projects have a work package like that, there is a community popping up, and that's the reason why we do this. And then other lessons is also try as much as possible. You talked about new associations. Try to build on existing infrastructure. So use the BICs. The BICs it's a European network on business innovation centers. Green ports are they called in the Netherlands, food valleys, etc. Those kind of concepts. Build upon them. Make them part of your project. Another issue I want to address is the SMEs. How to connect SMEs in an European project, in an Horizon project. We did it by having 2 types of activities. We have use cases where you do the real innovation, and where the dominant, the private sector is in the lead. So that's where the real innovation is happening, and the academics are more in the, let's say, the supporting lines that are supporting and facilitating this network. And in this use case concept, we are using SME-friendly contracting, which is also permitted by the Commission nowadays. It was quite a struggle, but now they prefer it also, and that really helps to avoid the administrative burden for SMEs. They can join for, let's say, in a simple way. Then here's an overview of the approach that we have. I'll pick up 1 minute more. Like I said, the work package on scouting, on looking around, on seeing what's happening in the sector. A very effective way of building communities, open calls. It's just having money on the market and people come to you. And it's very effective one to have open calls in your project. And it's also important to have, if you think about these use cases, you have to have some flagships, some real sparkling examples that you can say, this is what we want in this project. This is the good example, and we want new projects like new use cases like this. So some flagships, we call them. Then capacity building. That's about if you invite other people or organizations and people to come in, you have to offer them something, and that's crucial. If you don't offer something, then they will not come. So that's also think about if you want to invite, let's say, associations. You have to give them a floor that they can expose to their members also. Last but maybe least, competence centers in your network. It really helps. Like you said, you need orchestrator. You have to, for sustaining a network, you need some big organizations, I would say. So the INRAE, the CREA, or Wageningen, it really helps to make it more sustainable. Also to have a good counterpart towards the commission and so on. Yeah. So it's better to have, from that perspective, I shamelessly use the reputation of Wageningen in setting pressure on the commission. Yeah. And you can use also the higher level of your own organization in this case. Yeah. So that's these are some tricks I want to share. Then working in Europe, you have to be aware that you are with the happy few in your domain. Usually, let's say France, Netherlands, Italy, Ireland. These are well represented. But how about Macedonia, or how about Bulgaria, Malta? Those kind of, how to involve them. And that's what's in the Smart Agri Hubs project. That was one of the key issues that we have explored, that in each member state, all 27, we had a digital innovation hub, so an innovation ecosystem. And we had them. So there were, in the total in the project, we had over 300 innovation ecosystem. We call them digital innovation hubs. They were operating at a very local level, so close to farmers, and they were connected to each other with, let's say, we call it the innovation portal, where they could see the good practices and bring good examples of innovations in Portugal, how to and bring it to Greece or Bulgaria. And for quite crucial is that in let's say the academics, we believe in, let's say, rocket science, and it needs to be new, but replication is also a very strong instrument for innovation, and we need not to forget that. It's probably one of the most powerful innovation, especially when you think in a European-wide perspective. That's and this is, of course, you need to. I'm almost there. Okay, I'll skip some words on this one. The policy in the network. It's also important to have, let's say, the policy involved in the network. So how to do that? I think it's very good and professional also to have a good relation with your project officer who's representing the European Commission, and drink a cup of coffee once in a while when you are in Brussels. It's also important that if you organize events, give them a floor. We also invited ourselves to give lunch presentations about our projects. Be proactive in that one. We did some workshops with the European Parliament, which was quite convenient also for the Commission to have those kinds of things. And we made our network also instrumental for the European Commission. So suppose one of the commissioners has to give a lecture in Romania. So then we got a question: do we have use cases in Romania, and do we know people over there that are related to the topic? Why do we do that? Of course, the Commission is your customer, but it has also quite some impact in having them close to the project and let's say looking over your shoulder. Because if you come up with policy recommendation in 3 years' time, sorry, but the new framework is made now. So you have to sort of continuous interaction that people can, that also the Commission can learn from your project continuously, and they can use it when needed, and not when the project is ready to give its recommendations. And also, I think it's quite important to have some agility, especially if you have more, let's say 4 years project in digital. It's almost 2 generations, so you have to change the topics quite smoothly, and it's good to have good connection in that with the Commission. Last but it's the message is that effective research and innovation requires that you have a broad, active network to connect the dots and to be aware of the weakest link in the innovation chain. Thank you.
Thank you, George, and thank you for also sharing all of that experience so freely. I mean, it's kind of clear. It's 15, 20 years of this experience. You learn a lot. You've built professional friendships. You build kind of the understanding. Any questions for George?
Yeah, and thanks so much for this presentation. My question is related to these ecosystems that you basically, what happens after the project ends? Like, how are they sustained after the project ends?
Yeah. First of all, the orchestrator didn't get any EU money. So that's to ensure that they are linked to a organization that has a stake in having this innovation done at the regional level. And for the project as such, so for the European context, we started working on our sustainability from day one. So I fully agree with you have to do it from the start, because then you can give directions to your activities in that line and build relations with the relevant parties to sustain that. So the Smart Agri Hubs was ended in 3 years ago, but we continue to have our annual events. We have still the portal in live. Yeah.
And where does the funding then come from the different members who were?
Yeah, well, that's up to the orchestrator to arrange that. Yeah, and like I said, for the European level, we still continue with projects where we put some activities aside to participate in this network and to organize it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, George. You're going to be around, so surely we'll have more possibilities to talk over coffee, lunch, and all those kind of things. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And so I think it's exactly the question that we're trying to sort of make a start with today. Kind of how do we do this? What is fit for purpose for FoSSNet? So we need to find something that really works for this community. We can't sort of jet in a template from somewhere else. We need to figure out and work it through for us. Kind of what does this mean? So thank you very much for that, George. Then the next contribution is Trang Nguyen. I have to learn to pronounce the name properly. Apologies for this. Also from Wageningen, and Trang has a background from a completely different direction in development economics, consumer economics, and experimental economics. And so again, that brings in a different perspective. Trang.
So, good morning again, everybody. So I'm from Wageningen University and Research. So just to tell my personal story so that you get into my frame on social network. So I started my research career from the research side of the Wageningen University in research. So I was working with my PhD supervisor on a CGI funded project on food system interventions. mostly in low and middle income countries. And while I was working on a postdoc on the topic, my supervisor worked with somebody from the research side of Wageningen University and Research on food system resilience as part of another CGIAR funded project on COVID-19 impact on food system resilience around the world. And she brought me in, and that's how I connect to that colleague from Wageningen Research. And then that's how I become that's how I moved from the university side, from the research side. And at Wageningen Social and Economic Research, I met Tom, who is a colleague of that colleague, and we become team members, right? And yeah, so we have worked in a team, but it took us 2 to 3 years until I got the chance to move from my low middle income country focus of work to more on European and international focus. And that's how I got connected to Tom to work on FoSSNet project. And the plot twist here is we actually also work on CGIAR project that I worked on during my PhD. We just never got the chance to connect because we work on totally different work packages. So this really led me to wonder, like, what would have happened, right, if my social network looked a little bit different? He would have realized that I'm a bad or good colleague way earlier, and I may not be sitting here today. But so in social network analysis, we really wanted to focus on the direct relationships between people. So each person is a node in the network, and how the relationship are formed, developed, how those relationships are developed on really determine not only the personal development of that person, but also the whole network as a whole. So for FoSSNet, we want to use social network analysis to leverage the functioning of the network. So we kind of have the hypothesis that the relationships between different actors in FoSSNet as a project and as a network will have important implications for how the network functions. So to do this, we conducted a survey with FoSSNet members, and by FoSSNet members, it's an extended group that consists of not only FoSSNet consortium project members, but also invitees to the conferences. So basically, you are here today, you are part of the FoSSNet members, and you should have received an invitation to fill in that survey. That I believe that you did not do it, because we ended up with like about 71 responses so far, and I'm pretty sure that our network is much bigger than that. And each respondent in the network was asked to list the top 5 colleges you collaborate with on food system science activities. So that's how we create the boundary of our network. So it's a limitation because it's a strong tie. We're based on strong relationship, but it's given us, and for us, it's given us an idea of how FoSSNet entities at the core look like. So when we analyze the social network, then we analyze it at different levels, the whole network, the clusters, so how they organize as groups, different nodes in the networks organized as groups within the network. And also we look at the individual position within the network, whether they are central, they are locals. And for this talk today, then I will just focus on the whole network findings. So we use network mapping to showing interconnections between individuals, and also try to uncover the patterns. So we understand more about the collaboration dynamics in the network. So these are some of the first results of the SNA. So yesterday, social network analysis. Yesterday, Tom already gave you a demographic insights into how the network was formed. And now for the sake of time, I will just focus on the gaps that were identified when I analyzed the network. And with a disclaimer, because we did not have a full data set. So these are the gaps that what the data currently tell. And it will be updated when we get more data points in. So first, so we within the FoSSNet network, then there's well-defined communities. So each of the blocks here were created by the algorithm that group people We see that we already have some defined communities, but there's not enough like strong interconnections between these communities. And within each communities, they're not very connected tightly. Okay? And as a network as a whole, then it's quite sparse, and it can take 13 steps to connect to the two most distant people. So in a more tightly, for a reference, like a more tightly, rather like decently tight network, then you would expect the step to be 3 or 4 as an average. So there's still a lot to work in. But of course, we do not want to lose the communities, because those are the ones who are specialization, they are connected and they are working effectively. So we have to reach a balance there. The second gap is most networks is hub, and for our FoSSNet, it's also a hub-driven network, in the sense that we have some key players with more connections than others. And they play important roles because they can be orchestrator in JOT language. They can be knowledge hubs. But then we have a lot of like gray nodes outside the network. So, and they do not have direct connections to these central hubs. And the risk here is, you can foresee that there are unequal influences in power dynamics, because those central hubs will make the key decisions and may dominate others' voices. And they may be very fair, they may be very inclusive, but when something happens, because they are important, then the whole network are affected. So I talked to Stina about how she was freaking out because of the fire in Heathrow. So you can imagine if something like happened to one of the key members, the whole network will be affected. The third gap that we identified was the lack of collaboration beyond research. It's natural, it's not surprising, because we are a network of researchers mostly, but it's in our mandate, in our aspiration to work more on other aspects. But here we see it mostly in research, overwhelming research, some on communication, but not so much on policy and education, which I was expecting that we would have more working on education, for example. And the fourth gap was on the limited integration of disciplines and roles. So in FoSSNet, we have people that work more on research and heavily skewed towards social scientists. So how do we grow our networks to be more inclusive? And I forgot in my introduction that I was also part of the diverse early career group. That was a dedicated group within FoSSNet. And we really try to promote the role of early career researchers in our network. And you could see that here they mostly work on research, and they're also more likely to work with people of their own organizations, and they work on fewer types of collaborations. So almost nobody work on policy, even on policy development, for example. So we thought that was a gap. And the final one that I wanted to highlight, it's similar to what George already talked about. So we have uneven geographical coverage. We do not have so many people from producing Europe, and do we want to include more international partners in our network? So it's also something to consider. So in the next session, the final breakout session of this conference, you will have the chance to work in groups to identify how to tackle these gaps. But for now, I just want to give some inspiration from what FoSSNet was designed from the beginning. This was not informed by all the talks and discussion that we have had over the past 2 days. So we're really looking for more ideas beyond what I'm going to share with you. So we have the community, so we want to still leverage them. So following this social network analysis, we're still going to have national level workshop, and we want to use consortium members, national level communities to strengthen them, and then use that as a leverage to bridge to external networks through different types of collaborations. And We see that some nodes are not as connected, so we want to understand the exclusion mechanism. So that's part of what Work Package 3 of FoSSNet project will do. And identify the mechanism and try to disrupt and avoid such a mechanism. We plan to have the principle of open innovation. So yesterday we talked a lot about how FoSSNet should have a strong core value proposition, a common goal. So we're going to do that. And we're going to organize hackathons. So what Anna was talking today about how to bring people together to work on a concrete small problems. So that's what the hackathons, we try to bring people from different stakeholders and work on concrete issues. And we want to have knowledge hub. So the idea of the knowledge hub is to bring experts more. So we have a bigger group of hubs. So that reduces the vulnerability of the network. Right? So if you have more airports, probably we are not less scared about a fire in an airport. And in Work Package 4, we have territory and system-oriented labs. It would be linked to the activities of Work Package 2 on Knowledge Hub and Hackathon as well. Yeah. And we have a very strong component on food system capability building to support the spread of knowledge and sciences across Europe, and with a focus hopefully also on early career researcher. So we know, so Work Package 4 and 5 will identify the gaps that is missing, and then the academy and summer schools will have to fill those gaps and hopefully to create the next generation of food system science experts. Okay, so the next step for the social network analysis, we want to finalize the findings with full data sets of respondents. Please fill it in if you haven't done it, because the gold standard is 80% of response rates. It's very high, I understand, but it's a social network analysis. We really want to connect, we want to understand the relationships between people. So, and then we want to have national level workshops. So if you are part of the FoSSNet consortium members, you will be asked to organize such workshops in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trang. Any clarification questions for Trang?
Oh, I already sit down, sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe just for the scheme that you showed about Western Europe and Eastern, it would be more visually correct to see Panama to know exactly how you define the Western and Northern.
Yes, for the language. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I would have liked to do that.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thanks, Eva. Yep.
Thanks so much. I think this change is very important, but just a comment that after these meetings, it has changed completely the structure of the network already. So it's an evolving analysis, I guess, that you do. Yeah. And then also the scope of what we FoSSNet will also help us understand the quality of the network. For example, if we focus more on science or practice, but I think it's also part of the discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. A very nice input. So thank you again to George and to Trang for setting us up for this this morning. Then I'd like to hand over to Mario, who is going to talk about the workshop that we're going to now be engaging. Mario, thank you.
So see the time, we have a few minutes ahead, so I'll run and show you what is basically introduce you to what you're gonna do in the next hour. And as Martin, the George, and also Trang have introduced some of the concepts that now will take shape in the these three steps. So co-creation value proposition for the FoSSNet network. So value proposition and have a common understanding of what a network should offer within and outside the network is very, very important. Then we have seen the presentation of Trang on closing the gap. So try to find some information on how we can cover these gaps on as just Joao say, changing landscape of interaction, of course. And the first things I want to show you is one of the poster or canvas that you will be exposed. This is about the first exercise, and try to, reflect and pose yourself thinking of the FoSSNet as your ideal network, and try to answer, for instance, what may be the relationship. Consider this from your perspective. What are the key needs and challenges that they should the network address? So this is the first trunk piece of question that we pose. Then we ask the who should be involved in this type of activity, and then we ask them how, and at the end, we would like that you as a group come up with a sort of summary proposition sentence, which basically try to encapsulate what has been the discussion happening inside the previous three areas. So it's really building a value proposition. That's what is about, and it's at the very, very first step. We have heard a lot of information. We have received a lot of information today and the previous days, and therefore I think there may be something that can be distilled and put inside here. The second is, of course, what we just discussed on the gaps. There will be basically 6 gaps distributed in the pair on the table. You will choose randomly where you want to sit, and of course we try to have an equal number of people around these 6 gaps. So the 2 pairs, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, and then basically you will try to propose how to close the gap. But very, very important, try to give also a sort of to prioritize the gaps, the action in order to close the gap, in order to understand what is the strength, what we should address first, and why. Okay, so this is a little bit explaining you what is going to happen in the next room, and we will use the same fashion as the previous days. There will be a facilitator, 3 of us, me, you, Trang, and who is going to be, and Bobby. Perfect, and Bobby. And then we have also other 44 people online, which will be managed by a colleague of ours, Cecilia. So there is still people also thinking about it outside the 3 rooms there. Then there will be a facilitator, note taker, and then we come back here at the end of this 2 workshop with a coffee break in between in order to report what we have done. See you next. Welcome back. Thank you very much for pushing to this stage. We know you are a bit tired, and then we try now to basically give you an overview of what has happened in each single breakout room. Okay, again, very intensive discussion, very interesting feedback, and I start, and then I will call Bobby, and then there will be actually a viva voice from some of the people that were in the 3rd room with Tom. They will present their result. So in the my breakout room, we start to, of course, work with the value proposition. I'm trying to go to get just a minute. Okay, so we went to the first poster, the first canvas, and one thing that comes very strong in one of the table was that one of the needs and the challenges to have basically an open sign. So whatever the activity that we do should be communicated in an open and just way of doing it. And then very strong, we need to establish thematic areas and layers of topic, because one thing that I've also heard from the other table was the fact that thematic areas have not been defined. So, for instance, we miss here environmental scientists. It's not true. We have at least 2. We miss food technologies. We miss who does agriculture. And try to define what comes inside this large network of what we are doing with FoSSNet. Of course, there is this an example, supplementary example is human rights, which links to inclusivity and justice. Then food system thinker should be the governance umbrella from the bottom up in the network and build a culture of collaboration. So, we need to attract this beside us, who is a system thinker, and then create that governance in order to mainstream all the activity. There's in each of these big point. There's many other sub points which I don't go for mostly for matter of time. But I think when we go on basically who do you want to see as a partner inside, one table recall again the logo of FoSSNet. The onion structure is very, very important, and we need to start to think about who is in the center of the onion structure, and not necessarily who is part of the FoSSNet has to be the only actor inside the center. There should be that openness on accepting also other actors inside. Okay, so this is a very important aspect. That was, and then of course, policymaker, startup, civil society, NGO, social movement. That I don't go much in detail. What is interesting that they may call for European Board of Agriculture and Food should be, for instance, one of these external actors that should have a role in who is important for the FoSSNet consortium project. So now, how will the project support you? So in this case, of course, there is many aspects that goes on financial aspect. Proposing long-term financial support, and we can come up later on and again, reiterating possible tools and measures to do that. But there is also things like a network could support research curiosity driven. So not always, institutionalized type of things, but really go and open up on thinking out of the box and open new venues for a researcher to investigate new venues. And there is one. We didn't have a sufficient time in a way, but there is only one group which contribute to the value proposition, like a few messages. So the importance of governance and role of an orchestrators, so that basically there is this has an element of added value on the FoSSNet. Learning how to evolve our knowledge and how to decide on the direction of the network. This is another things that appear to be important. Allow for different types of research, advocate for long-term vision. So this certainly need to be, of course, formulated in a different way, but can be part of the value proposition. Learning how to do more with what we have now. So just capitalize as much as possible in that and start to strategize for the future, and help to understand the relationship between actors in food system, and help understand how act upon it. So this is really also another strong value proposition that we collect. Okay, I stop here because I don't talk about session 4. Maybe we do all the first one, and I call. Oh, no, should I carry on? Okay, good. Then we went to the second round, and here, there's been the possibility to assess only 4 of the 6 gap, because the room had only 2 groups. We could not do all 6, and but we did replica, so at least to have twice gap 3, twice gap 4, 5, and 6. So, and for gap 3, the action is to address network gaps lack of collaboration behind research. So here there is action like podcast, MOOCs, YouTube channel, or you have improve exchange between regions, policymaker and researcher. So policymaker comes quite often in this discussion. Policy are not engaged yet in some countries. So there is geographical differences. So there are lack of policy, gap of policy, and we need to somehow fulfill that. There is also a necessity for institutional entrepreneurship, which is a missing aspect. We are talking a lot about workshop and joint event. This joint workshop should also include this geographic dimension, try to include other people from underrepresentative people. And then for GAP 4, there was basically something that will reiterate the fact that using the same words with meaning different things, using different criteria of research, creating barrier in effective dialogue. So I try to go a little bit, for instance, making tension visible and address the conflict shaping different opinion in constructive way. Why do we disagree? How we define things and so on. So this is a way of basically the integration of discipline. And the multi-interdisciplinarity aspect, there is a gap. So agree to disagree, and other things. Large egos with research center a university need to be mitigated, so to give space to other people. There was a lot of discussion about also salary and a medieval way of some institution nowadays to work with early researcher. It was coming in the next CAP. Okay. So, in this one, of course. Now, in action to address a limited role of early career researchers, both tables say, "Hi, we need mentoring. We need very strong mentoring in order to, educate early stage researcher in the progression. But there is also the necessity of give sort of a free space, free area for other researchers to meet, to discuss, where also other actors outside the network come and can find some valuable discussion for the early researchers to go on. There's been a lot of activity, coming on the direction of the early research and the geographic link. So some southern part of Europe has low salary. The career progression is very tough. Aspect like teaching overload versus research activities, which would promote the internationalization of early researcher, or early researcher is also pretty much unbalanced. So there is a lot that's been said, and I don't want to say more. I stop here, no problem. I want and call now Bob. It has been already cut. And I say, Bobby, if you can come and do yours.
I also have co-presenters, and Dennis, to join me to make it a bit more.
You choose one direction.
Okay, I'll be as quick as possible. Do I need to present it? Okay. So I'll quickly talk about the first session, and then Dennis and Ilse will cover the gaps that they addressed for the second session. So first of all, about creating the value proposition network. Some of the key challenges or needs that we think the network can address as, let's say, a business option and the value proposition is that it can establish food system science as a mainstream science, which can then in turn position Europe as a global center of excellence for food system science. and this so-called Pan-European Food System Network. It would help to keep food system science have an open and outward-looking approach, and so that we don't become insular and siloed. What was stressed a lot during this first breakout was that to do this, you really need, well, everyone here in the room and the FoSSNet project to clarify the mission, the vision, and the goals so that we can clearly define the scope of the network. And through that, then, once we have this clear mission, vision, and goals, we can use the network as an advocacy for policy engagement on behalf of the entire European food system science community. But of course, to do this, we need first this core group to commit to this and to sustain the network over the longer period. And this will help also to navigate the challenge of staying focused amidst rapid change. Of course, you need to target this, provide the network to offer solutions by engaging practitioners, consumers, and policymakers, and involve them in co-creation activities. So maybe this is like the work in Work Package 2 we have with the workshops that we're expanding to people outside the FoSSNet network. It can help us build meaningful relationships across research, policy, civil society, and business. And of course, that will ensure that the network stays relevant and has impact. So really, to articulate the value proposition, we would say that people are the network and individuals are the nodes of the transformation. And we think that this network can equip members with system thinking and doing skills to drive the change they need. And of course, this means we should really work on what we have as our logo, which is the onion metaphor. So this network should be the core, the change agents, us, the food system scientists and food system thinkers, to engage the outer layers. So people that can understand food system science, but maybe don't themselves classify as food system scientists. And this way we can expand community and stakeholders, and it has a cascading outward flow. So that's for the first one. Thank you. And now, yes, Dennis, I have some slides for you.
Okay.
So it's this is for your first gap and the strengths and weaknesses, and then the next one is for you.
We've discussed so many things. I don't know how much of that is captured in this one slide, but I'll try to do my best. Yeah, I think Trang nicely showed the first version of the social network analysis, where the 13 steps from the connection to one individual person to the other one. So this structural holes, like how to bridge these individuals with our social, with our network, I think that's the biggest gap. And to address that, I think we as a network will act as a knowledge broker. If we have the food systems framework there, if we can identify these individuals, which part of this food system they're active, and to what extent they adopt and implement the elements of the food system science. If we can identify those individuals, then perhaps that will be the gatekeepers for us to reach this network of networks, which are all connected to each other. That was the discussions we had. The wheel of loosely connected networks, yeah, that's what I meant by filling the structural holes. And of course, the support the system science thinkers. One of the main outcomes from the FoSSNet project is also the curriculum development when it comes to food system science, the literacy, how we can be active and provide this competency within the network. And that comes actually, since it's not an easy task to teach the systems thinking in abstract, we need to have some sort of cases or problems to use in our teaching. So case-based learning, problem-based learning. We talked about, is it possible to identify some pilot projects, some joint research projects that we can use when it comes to like solving real-time problems, but also developing this competency at the same time with within our network, and reaching, of course, the stakeholders that are involved in these pilot cases, because that's the way to adapt the curriculum and make this competency available to all in the network. And that brings the different parts of the elements of the food system science, everything from conceptual modeling with stakeholder participatory workshops to bring this broader food systems thinking approach, understanding complexity, seeing the big picture, but then zooming in to the individual discipline or areas, focus areas that we're all interested in. And then all the way to
move on because we have still a matter of time.
Yeah, I'm happy to discuss.
Yeah, so within our group, we discussed two gaps. And the first one was related to limited role of early career professionals. And I would like to summarize our discussion with three keywords. So I think that the first proposed action could be described by just asking. So there was an emphasis on asking early career researchers about their needs directly and afterwards to see how to facilitate them. So having this discussion. And the second part of our conclusions could be summarized by keyword listening. So actually seeing early careers approaches to the FoSSNet and Food System Science Network and seeing how they could actually benefit from the network. An interesting idea was to have a meeting or a session where early career researchers present and share their experiences and perspectives with the more experienced researchers and the other stakeholders as well. And the third keyword would be being conscious about it. So sometimes perhaps really consciously thinking if there is enough access of early careers to knowledge, to meetings, to conversations that are crucial. And it is important in order both for them to learn and also to be able to contribute to the field. There are also some strengths and weaknesses to this approach. First of all, of course, it empowers the future leaders of food system science, brings in fresh, possibly radical ideas. So meaning that they might be in some ways more new, more fresh than bring some new perspectives in a way. And building a long-term commitment to the network. Weaknesses, early career professionals may lack clarity on what support they actually need or how they could benefit from the network, and their input may also vary widely across disciplines and countries. We also discussed another gap, which was related to uneven geographical coverage. And again, three main points. So first, identifying which areas are underrepresented, which has actually partially been done by the survey also. Then traveling, holding conferences, events, meetings in different parts of Europe, including outside Western Europe. And inviting partners, speakers from underrepresented areas to events and conferences. Main strengths, building more inclusive and representative network, helping ensuring policies and science are relevant across Europe. Of course, still acknowledging that there can be logistical and funding challenges. And also there was a discussion, a point raised on perhaps sometimes local capacity to actually absorb support or funding in some countries. And this is yet another issue to be discussed. Yeah. Thanks.
So now we have, I think, a presentation from the group 3 with Anna.
Yes, so we realized that we're going very fast over time. So instead of me presenting for the room, Anna will present for one group, and the rest will be condensed into the synthesis. Okay. And then we do the online group after that?
Yes, we do.
Or do we?
No, we will acknowledge the work done there too. Otherwise, we'll be unjust. So please.
Fairness has many dimensions.
Yes. Okay. So I will just go. As Tom said, because we're running out of time, I'm just gonna go quickly to the value proposition and the actions. And in our group, we were discussing this value proposition in terms of what we came up with this idea of why should you come to this network is to transform the food system, but also to be transformed. So we thought it was important that the people that join this network is a space for those that are interesting, regardless of the background. So that is quite an open and inclusive space. And also we were imagining again this image of the onion of having like a core group that looks at food system science, specifically focusing on the connections between the components of the food system. Then the outer layer that is focusing on the components of food systems, and then those that are working on elements related to the food system, but not necessarily food related. So we'll have, the focus on connections, the focus on components, and then other elements that affect the food system. When we were thinking about the what and how, we were thinking about the importance of not just identifying and inviting people, but creating spaces where people can come to us as well, and the importance of creating these platforms to connect, learn together, and developing a shared language. If we actually want the network to be a place to transform things, but also be transformed, to walk the talk, we think it's important that the space is generative, that is flexible, that it encourages flexibility, and that we're open to valuing dissent, to have struggle, fiction, to sit with conflict, and as Donna Haraway says, staying with the trouble, so that we're kind of like get comfortable in that space in terms of like long term. And I'm just gonna talk now about some specific actions to closing two gaps. We were also talking about early career researchers, and I think many of the things that have already been said by the other groups, where we're saying about this importance of creating maybe a working group with a specific actions on inclusion, and that means also how we ensure inclusion, for example, through this conference, in terms of like ways of facilitation, reminding people how to be inclusive in terms of like this amount of space they take and the amount of space they are not giving, therefore, things like this. And we also thought it was important to provide tailored opportunities that are relevant to early careers. And in this sense, acknowledging that early careers have needs to progress in their careers. So be mindful as well about the importance of having outputs or outcomes that are relevant for them to continue progressing. And here are some kind of like examples. And one of the ideas that we put forward is maybe have like half-day mini conference before the next FoSSNet conference, so that they can present their work and also get kind of like that those benefits of learning and having feedback and get that on the CVs as well. And the final one about uneven geographical coverage. I would like to say with the early careers that we had early careers people in our group, so that's something that I think is relevant to highlight with the proposal. So, and also with the uneven geographical coverage, there are things that have already been said as well. We think it's important to, as Ilse was saying, understand what is the work that is being done there, but we also need to understand that maybe we need to look at different criteria in terms of identifying what work is being done, not only looking at who is publishing papers from these underrepresented countries in specific journals, or if they are participating in European projects, but there are other activities that are rendered invisible right now, and that's maybe one of the reasons why we're not having them in the networks. There are things around as well, language, address language differences and value different types of different languages as well. And all this idea about management support and grant management and institutional capacity. And as Ilse was saying, supporting or having events or going to events that are held in other countries at national level networks, we think is also very relevant. And this was just like a summary of some of the cross actions, because we do think that there are elements of inclusion that cut across the early careers, but also the geographical aspects. So changing values and criteria, and also having protocols when we talk about inclusion be specific.
Thank you very much. And we give credit also to the people that are have been working online for FoSSNet. There were 10 participants, a little bit more that wished to participate, but then 10 were engaged in, as you here in presence. And just for matter of time, let me take this. I will only present the value proposition, and then I give to Tom Group to analyze the gaps. Okay, so I need to read myself because it's the very first time I really go to basically, let me see. Value proposition, capacity development. So is this there is a gap one, gap two? Okay, so basically I will concentrate on this. So there is collaboration and resources. So more of industry, policymaker, farmers. So these are the actors that's supposed to be a part of the FoSSNet network. Youngest and oldest, funders. We need financial support, financial agency. Synergy between funding streams is extremely important, whether it's national, regional, or international. Education from kindergarten to university in order to introduce basically concept of system thinking, and then service providers, innovation agency, and farming consultants. So this is one very strong indication about with whom we should engage. Then sharing of knowledge and tools between research and industry. It's very important. It really recall the fact that we need to open and to interact, to enrich ourselves and to enrich also other people. And then there is here a quote, EU has a lot of useful resources and tools, but we are largely unaware of them. So we may need to explore more about these resources. And then capacity development support, so intercultural communication to establish long-term relationship is very important. And for youngest and oldest, and how practically to deal with system issue for different perspective and integrating different perspective. And I think this is a very interesting piece of value proposition that we can elaborate and maybe come with one strong value proposition which encapsulate all what we have heard. I thank you, the people online, Cecilia and Camilla, which have done a great job in managing this. They deserve an applause too. And the gaps you will receive, guys, I just cut short and give, I don't know whether it's Monica or you, Tom, which has the closure. It's you. Oh, sorry.
Monica, Tom, sorry,
but it's you.
Yes, we'll keep this very, very, very short. But Monica will give you just a very short recap of the session one, or rather the process to close session one.
Yeah. So as we didn't report back on what's going to happen with the conceptual framework and to definition development, as we're discussing still so much of how to take on all the great feedback that we got, we have basically designed now a set of principles, which was one of idea that we think would be useful. So here's first what we're going to do with the work package one. The conceptual framework will basically include a lot of these points around less linearity, better capturing feedbacks, and so on and so forth. There will be a redrafting also of the science definition, which takes on, in a sense, the what a bit clearer, and the why, why we need food system science together with how could we work on this. And here's already a set of captured elements that came out of what we received from you all, but because of time, I'm not going to go through in detail. So here's then the process of how we want to bring closure to that, because at one point in time, we just basically say that's it, at least for now, which is the steering committee, John and I and a whole bunch of other people will review all the feedback that we received. As I said, we already distilled some into these principles. form a small group to kind of think about, what's, so to say, the version that works for the network. Again, the purpose is for the network. Doesn't mean that people cannot use similar frameworks in any kind of other capacities. And then at the end, it's a steering committee of the program, which is all the work package and work package leads, basically, to agree on a revised version and definition that we're going to put out basically for the framework for now. As I say, there's already been work that has happened based on the previous framework that we're going to bring into this. But then we have something that, as for the purpose of the network, we can basically work with and do this. And that's hopefully something that before the summer we can agree on. And that's it for now. Doesn't, as I say, there can be later revisions and all that. But that's what, for the purpose of the project, we are going to work with in terms of the conceptual framework and the revisions. Okay, so back to Stina.
Thanks, Monica. Okay, so we're getting very, very close to the end of the conference. I wanted to just end not by summarizing anymore, but to maybe give you one of my key takeaways. I will go away from here with at least 3 words that are highly inspired from one of the group discussions I participated in: transparent gatekeeping, boundary spanners, and multi-geeks. So I see a very strong need for transparent gatekeeping. On the one hand, we want to be more open as a network. We need to bring more people, more knowledges in. At the same time, we also want to keep a strong objective, a strong focus. And that requires a very transparent kind of gatekeeping. We also need people and actors that goes across these layers of the onion. We need to connect very clearly with other kinds of expertises, leading to the last word of the multi-geeks. We need people that have expertise beyond food system science, but that are also food system thinkers. And maybe the FoSSNet network, as an overall aim, is to actually create a forum for more food system geeks to become nerds in food system science and really develop what do we mean, how do we think about food system science. So my other very key takeaway from here is also that it is relevant, and there is a will actually to take this deep dive into food system science. And I was going to close, but we have this one too.
Yes, exactly. So that brings us to the next 2 conferences that the network is, or the project is, organizing together with the network. We had the Oxford one, and I really cannot say thank you enough for all of you to come and talk with us and go with us through these intensive days, out of which we have pulled so much. We will meet again in June next year, so please put the dates into your diaries already. June next year in Lund, hosted by Håkon and his team, to basically continue the discussion, which is about mobilizing the knowledge that we bring together as a network for transformation, and also really understanding what does it mean in practice. So where do we go from here in terms of doing this? And then we will have a last conference in 2027 to bring all of this together, and of course work with people in the commission and more the policy making side and the industry and the NGO world, to kind of say, so what does it now mean for you, and how do we go about building the network out further? But we really hope to get a lot of people at Lund also that are from the non-scientific community actually into the Lund meeting, which brings me to the last little bit. We really would love to thank our organizing team here for Oxford, who was led by Roger, who you all know here from our team, but also the UFIC team provided all this really fantastic support for the online work, for the conference and all of that. And we had these brilliant note takers, and actually I just see if I got any on the list. So we had 4 fantastic note takers, both from the Oxford community, that is really helping us to synthesize the great discussions that we all had, and we would really like to give them all a hand in addition to the whole organizing team. So thank you very much.
This will be the last time we mention the surveys. Please remember, you can also follow us up in other places. I skipped one. Where did it go? No, okay, we skipped that one currently. Then I would just, on behalf of the full FoSSNet consortium, like to really say a very, very big thank you for coming and staying. And I know that we've been asking a lot of you during this conference. I hope you have gained a lot as well. And I hope to see you next year, at least, if not sooner, in Lund. There is lunch now for those who wish to stay. Thank you very much.